we can take one of the demos that is present in this handout, and again, the idea is that we can just like basically copy and paste the sample from the handout, which in its own turn corresponds exactly to the content of chapter 12 of the book, and paste it in our own code, which is right here. And so once we're done with our sine curve, we can add something new like this. And this, for instance, again, positions everything correctly. Some of the images are predefined. So let's take a look at this result. If I build it, again, I apologize that there's some mismatched type warnings, but it's okay. Right now we ignore them. So this is our first screen, right, which continues to display the sine curve. We're still waiting for this button to be clicked, and then it's supposed to bring the image over here. And so this is the image that is located in the example over here. And so notice that just a quick note that when you describe paths in C++, just remember that it's advisable to use forward slashes, although backslashes are common on Windows. If you use backslashes, remember you need to escape them, basically duplicate them when you use them part of the path. Let's just make sure that we demonstrate it. So when you do something like this and you want to use Windows-specific path, which using the backslash, then look, you can do it. Let me rebuild this. So if I rebuild this with this change, it's okay. It should run exactly the same way, like this, and it does. But whenever you're using C++ or Java, pretty much all environments, it is highly advisable that you switch to just forward slashes, which is portable, part of the portable languages. So they're using forward slashes for for the paths specifications. Also, just an observation that the way we're finding this image. So remember, at some point I told you that you can find out what your current folder is by saying, actually what I will use is a system. I'll just use system portable operating system call cd, which will print. Cd is a change directory command, but cd without any arguments displays the current path. So we should be able to see it on our screen. And then we can describe this relative path and its what the role it plays in this application. So let's run again. I will build it first and then we'll run it. Okay. And so this time I will bring the window, and remember we're also displaying the console output window. So when I click next, you see that this system CD is actually printing the current path. And it just happens to be that my path is my current path. What it prints for me is this, right? So this is the path. How does this current path relate to the way I'm trying to find my image? So apparently what happens is that first I tell that I want to, so this is my current path right now, my current directory. And so when I use ... over here, I'm going from my current directory to the parent directory, which is labs. Then I use dot dot again, and it's a signal that I am still not where I want to be, that I move to the containing directory. So or parent directory. And now this becomes the directory where I am with my path at this stage. And then I say there should be a subfolder named example under here. And if I look at the current structure of my folders, let's find out. So our current directory was this originally, right here. Oi, what did I do? All right, so this was our current directory, and so this was our project directory. Then we went to labs like this. Then we went to GUI like this. And look, there is an example. It's true, right? So we jump into example. Under example, there are images. Under images, there is something called image.jpg, and that's the file. Okay, so that's the file that we're looking for. Okay, and so apparently the image class is able to construct an image object. We specify what is the location of the top left corner uh, of the of the image, and then we essentially display it at that position. So that's the thing. So this is how we're making it visible when we run it. And of course, the image in itself, we should be able to search for it, and we can find it somewhere inside the graph.h, right? So if I move it again to another side, looking for image, right? Looking for image, same thing. Image is kind of shape, right? So we say that image uses shape as a base class or inherits everything from shape. This is the constructor for the image. String over here is the path, right? So this string parameter over here is the path that we specify. And we also using the encoding, the image encoding type. And apparently the default encoding refers to JPEG image, I suppose, because we can probably display PNG images and other image formats potentially. And so there, internally, it's using FLTK library image um, to display the image and manipulate the image. Okay, so that's how it works. So once again, this is just an important observation that the image is still kind of shape. It's still the same part of the same family of classes and structures that inherit themselves from the parent class shape, and that's the core part of organization of this library. Because when everything is attached to the window itself is like a container of all of these different types of shapes that we attach. And once we attach them, eventually when the window receives a call to draw these shapes, it iterates through them and calls a function named draw lines. And for instance, for the image, draw lines will be, I sure expect it to be found somewhere in graph.cpp. So if I look for image colon draw lines, right? So it uses, if the label exists, it will do this. And P, I think, what is P? P is a pointer to an image. So it's basically going to the FLTK image and tells FLTK image that you need to draw yourself. So this is just a technicality, but the communication with the underlying library. But everything is here, and every time these objects are being displayed, their virtual draw lines, a virtual function is invoked. And you can see that once again, that draw lines is actually a constant function, which says that I am not trying to modify anything. I'm just trying to make everything visible, which does not require any sort of modification on the underlying objects, which are shapes. So this is an overview of what we have so far in our library and in this lab. So I consider that by this conversation we sort of conclude lab 2 in the coverage of our topics in class. But your job is, of course, to go through the textbook and try all of the examples and try tweaking them the way I try tweaking them to make things appear the way I like. So to be continued. Next chapter is 13, and next lab is lab 3, I think. And so that's to be continued next week. Thank you.